I thought my final chemotherapy session was the hardest thing I'd ever face, but I was wrong. The real pain started when my own daughter used my credit card to buy a luxury car for her husband, telling me I wouldn't live long enough to spend my own money. They thought they had me frail and vulnerable, but they awakened something in me they would live to regret, and I promised myself right then and there that justice would be served, one way or another. But before we get into the heart of this unbelievable story, if you're enjoying it so far, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is, where you are now. It really helps me out, and I love hearing from all of you. My name is Helen, and up until a few days ago, I was living what I considered a quiet, comfortable life at 68 years old, here in Phoenix, Arizona. My husband, David, a wonderful man and a retired police detective, had passed away 5 years prior, leaving me with a stable life and a meticulously managed estate that I, with the help of our financial advisor, Patricia Williams, had actually managed to grow significantly. I'd spent my life as a high school English teacher, pouring my heart into my students, always prioritizing my family, especially my only daughter, Sarah. I'd always tried to be the supportive, selfless mother, the one who was always there, no matter what. After David passed, Sarah, with her husband Marcus, an engineer, had become my primary companions. They lived just across town, and I treasured our time together. When I received my cancer diagnosis a year ago, it was a terrifying blow, but I faced it head-on, just as I'd faced everything else in my life. Sarah and Marcus had been outwardly supportive, accompanying me to appointments, fetching groceries, and generally being there for me, or so I thought. My final chemotherapy session had been draining, leaving me weak but filled with an overwhelming sense of relief and hope. My oncologist had given me fantastic news, a 93% 5-year survival rate. I was going to beat this. The future, once uncertain, now stretched out bright and full of possibility. The drive home that afternoon felt like a victory lap. Sarah was at the wheel of my car, Marcus in the passenger seat, and I was in the back, leaning my head against the window, watching the familiar Phoenix landscape blur by. The air conditioning felt wonderfully cool against my tired skin. Sarah was chattering about dinner plans, something light and celebratory, and Marcus was nodding along, occasionally interjecting with an anecdote about his latest engineering project. I felt a wave of peace wash over me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in months. This was what family was supposed to feel like, I thought, a safe harbor after a storm. But that serene moment was shattered with startling abruptness. As we drove past a row of luxury car dealerships, Marcus, who had always had a fascination with high-end vehicles, suddenly exclaimed, "Whoa, wait a second! Sarah, pull over! Is that the new Porsche 911 Targa? My dream car?" Sarah, ever eager to please him, swerved into the dealership parking lot without a moment's hesitation. I watched them, a faint frown creasing my brow. We were supposed to be going home, not car shopping. I was exhausted, but I didn't say anything, believing it would just be a quick look. We walked into Henderson's luxury cars, the air cool and thick with the scent of leather and new money. Jim Morrison, a slick salesman with a practiced smile, descended on us, eyeing Marcus's eagerness like a hawk. Marcus was practically vibrating with excitement as he circled the silver Porsche, running his hand over its sleek lines. "It's perfect, Sarah," he breathed, his eyes shining. "Absolutely perfect." Sarah smiled, a little too brightly, and then, without so much as a glance my way, she turned to me. "Mom, you know Marcus has always dreamed of a car like this. He works so hard, and he deserves it, don't you think?" I was still reeling from the chemo, my thoughts sluggish. "Sarah, darling, it's very expensive. A Porsche is a significant purchase." Before I could finish, before I could even process the words forming in her mouth, she reached into my handbag, which was resting on my lap, and pulled out my credit card, my platinum card, the one I used for major household expenses, the one I had opened after David's passing to manage the joint estate. My jaw went slack. "Mom, you have ample savings," she said, her voice casual, dismissive, almost cheerful, as she extended the card towards Jim Morrison. "And frankly, you won't live long enough to spend it all anyway. Just think of it as an early inheritance." The words hit me like a physical blow, worse than any side effect of the chemotherapy. "You won't live long enough to spend it all anyway." It echoed in my ears, a cruel, cold pronouncement from my own daughter, delivered with such a casual indifference, as if discussing the weather. I was stunned. I looked at Sarah, then at Marcus, whose face was alight with pure, unadulterated greed, completely oblivious to the dagger his wife had just plunged into my heart. He was already shaking Jim Morrison's hand, talking about test drives and financing options, as if the purchase was already a done deal. And it was. Jim Morrison, seeing the platinum card, processed the transaction with a speed that felt predatory. $78,000 for the car, plus taxes and fees, totaling $84, $224.47, all charged to my card. I sat there in silence, my mind numb, watching the world spin around me. The vibrant colors of the showroom faded to a dull gray. The joy I'd felt moments ago evaporated, replaced by a cold, hollow ache. I had just come from fighting for my life, from overcoming a grave illness, only to be told by my own flesh and blood that my life was already forfeit, my finances ripe for the picking. I was a casualty, not of cancer, but of greed. The drive home was quiet, save for Marcus's excited chatter about his new car and Sarah's occasional, almost nervous, affirmation. I said nothing. I couldn't. My mind was racing, not with sadness, but with a cold, clear fury. As soon as we pulled into my driveway, I offered a terse, "Thank you for the ride," and went straight inside, shutting the door firmly behind me before they could even offer to help me out. I didn't feel weak anymore. I felt a surge of strength, a clarity I hadn't had in years. A switch had flipped. The tired, cancer-stricken mother, the one they presumed was on her last legs, vanished. In her place stood Helen, the woman who had built a successful life, managed an estate, and fought for her own survival. This was no longer about being a victim. This was about justice. This was about reclaiming my dignity. My first call was to Patricia Williams, my financial advisor. She was surprised to hear from me so late in the day. "Patricia," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil within me. "I need to report an unauthorized transaction on my platinum card. A significant one, over $80,000 today." I calmly recounted the events at the dealership, careful to provide every detail. Patricia listened, her professional demeanor shifting to one of genuine concern. "Helen, that's federal fraud, and from your daughter? We need to act immediately." She confirmed what I already knew. A credit card used without explicit permission, especially under these circumstances, was a serious crime. She immediately initiated the report, advising me to contact law enforcement as well. My next call was to Detective Ramon Santos. He was David's former partner, a kind, gruff man who had become a trusted family friend over the years. He picked up on the second ring. "Ramon, it's Helen. I need your advice and possibly your help." His voice softened when he heard mine. "Helen, you sound different. What's wrong?" I explained everything again. The betrayal, Sarah's words, Marcus's complicity. Ramon's silence on the other end was heavy. "Helen," he finally said, his voice laced with concern, "this isn't just a family dispute. This is grand theft. And given the amount, it's absolutely federal fraud. I'll get you in touch with some people at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit first thing tomorrow morning. And Helen, I'm so sorry this is happening to you." Over the next 72 hours, I operated with a precision and focus that surprised even myself. I pulled out old notebooks, carefully maintained since David's passing, detailing every single transaction, every investment, every gift I had given to Sarah and Marcus. I had always been meticulous with my finances, a habit instilled by David, who was equally disciplined. I had records, not just of the credit card transaction, but of a pattern of behavior that had been slowly gnawing at my savings for the past 3 years. Emergency car repairs for Marcus, a desperate need for a new kitchen renovation, a much-needed family vacation to Hawaii that I had reluctantly funded, all totaling an astounding $127,000, not including the Porsche. Each one had been presented as an urgent necessity, always with the promise of repayment that never materialized. I compiled everything into a neat spreadsheet, dated and categorized. It was undeniable proof of long-term financial exploitation. I spent hours on the phone with Patricia, ensuring all my accounts were secured, passwords changed, and any joint access Sarah might have had was immediately revoked. Patricia helped me open new, completely independent accounts. I also quietly contacted a local real estate agent, putting my Sedona property, a small vacation cabin David and I had owned, on the market. It was a place full of memories, but now it felt tainted, a reminder of what I had to protect. The following morning, I met with FBI agents Sarah Richardson and Michael Chin at the Phoenix Federal Building. They were serious, professional, and listened intently as I laid out my case, providing them with my meticulously prepared documentation. "Mrs. Miller," Agent Richardson said, her voice firm, "what you're describing here is a pattern of felony financial fraud. The statements from your daughter, combined with the unauthorized use of your credit card for such a large sum, and the history of other withdrawals, paints a very clear picture. This could lead to significant jail time for both your daughter and son-in-law." Hearing the words spoken aloud, the stark reality of what I was doing brought a fresh wave of pain. But there was no turning back. They had chosen this path, not me. Later that same day, after my meeting with the FBI, I made another call to Jim Morrison at Henderson's. "Mr. Morrison," I said, "do you happen to have another silver Porsche 911 Targa 2024 model, exactly like the one my son-in-law bought yesterday?" He paused, then chuckled. "Why, yes, Mrs. Miller, we do have one in stock. Just came in this morning. A beautiful car. Are you perhaps interested in a trade-in?" "No," I replied, a small smile playing on my lips. "No trade-in. I'll take it. And I'll be paying cash." I went back to the dealership, this time in my own taxi, and bought the identical newer model Porsche. It cost $82,000. When I drove it off the lot, the smooth roar of the engine, a powerful purr, I felt a sense of defiance, a quiet triumph. This wasn't just a car, it was a symbol that I was very much alive, very much in control, and very much capable of spending my own money. I decided to confront Sarah that evening. I parked my new Porsche right in front of her house, ensuring it was visible from the living room window. I watched her face pale when she saw it, then shift to confusion and finally a flicker of fear. "Mom? What is that?" she stammered, pointing at the gleaming silver car. "It's my new car, darling," I said, my voice calm, almost detached. "A little gift to myself. You know, since I'm going to live long enough to spend my own money after all." The color drained from her face. Marcus emerged from the house, drawn by the sound of the Porsche. His eyes widened, a mixture of envy and bewilderment. He looked from my car to his, then back to mine. "Helen, what is going on?" he asked, his voice betraying a hint of panic. "What's going on?" I replied, stepping past them into their living room, "is that I've spent the day correcting some rather significant errors." I sat down on their couch, folded my hands neatly in my lap, and looked directly at Sarah. "The $84, $224. $47 you charged to my credit card yesterday for Marcus's car? That was federal fraud, Sarah. I've reported it to the FBI." Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Marcus's jaw dropped. "Mom, you wouldn't," Sarah cried, her voice rising in pitch. "It was just a loan. I was going to pay you back, eventually." "No, Sarah," I said, my voice unwavering. "You told me I wouldn't live long enough to spend my own money. You stole from me." And that wasn't the first time, was it? I pulled out a manila envelope. Inside were the spreadsheets, the documentation of every emergency withdrawal, every loan that was never repaid. The Hawaii trip, the kitchen renovation, the car repairs. $127,000, Sarah, over 3 years, all carefully documented. The FBI agents found it very interesting. Sarah burst into tears, denying everything, claiming I was confused, that the chemotherapy had made me delirious. Marcus, initially defensive, began to pale as I laid out the meticulously organized evidence. He tried to interrupt, to deflect, but I cut him off. Agent Richardson and Agent Chen explained the legal implications very clearly. Felony financial fraud. Years in federal prison. For both of you. The room was silent, save for Sarah's choked sobs. She looked at Marcus, then back at me, her eyes wide with terror. "Mom, please," she pleaded. "You can't do this. I'm your daughter. A daughter who stole from her own mother, who wished her dead for her money." I countered, my voice still calm, but laced with an icy edge. "That's not the daughter I raised, Sarah." Then came the final, pivotal revelation. "You see, Sarah," I continued, "your father David was a very wise man. He knew the world, and he knew people. He also knew his daughter. He set up a substantial inheritance for you, to be released when you were mature enough to handle it responsibly. He wanted you to have a secure future, to build something of your own, not rely on others. I've been managing it for years, growing it just as he intended." Sarah looked up, her tears momentarily forgotten, a flicker of hope mixed with confusion in her eyes. "What are you talking about, Mom? What inheritance?" "David invested in some land in Sedona and set up a trust fund for you. It's grown quite nicely. It's currently valued at approximately $180,000, far more than you've stolen from me." I watched as the shock registered on her face, then a dawning comprehension, followed by a surge of anger. "You withheld it from me? All these years?" she accused. "Yes, Sarah," I said, meeting her gaze steadily, "because David and I agreed you weren't ready. And clearly you still aren't. But this inheritance, if you agree to my terms, is your way out of federal prison." I laid out my conditions, clear and non-negotiable. First, full restitution for everything you've taken from me, including the Porsche, totaling $211, $224, $47. The Sedona property will need to be sold, and the trust fund liquidated to cover this. Second, formal written apologies, acknowledging your theft and exploitation. Third, both of you will undergo mandatory financial counseling. And fourth, you will have absolutely no future access to any of my accounts, ever again. Not for emergencies, not for anything. These are the terms for the FBI to reduce the charges to misdemeanors, allowing you to avoid prison time, but you will still have community service and a permanent mark on your record. If you refuse, Sarah, your inheritance will be immediately redirected to the Phoenix Children's Hospital, and the federal charges will proceed as felonies. The choice is yours." Sarah and Marcus looked at each other, their faces a mixture of fear, shock, and dawning despair. They knew I meant every word. They saw the cold resolve in my eyes, the steel in my voice. The days of me being their easy mark, their ATM, were over. They argued, they pleaded, they tried to manipulate, but I remained firm. Ramon Santos had prepared me for this. He told me to expect denial, anger, blame, but I had my facts, my evidence, and my resolve. After hours of tense discussion, they finally, reluctantly, accepted. The alternative was a future they couldn't bear to face. The fallout was swift and devastating for them. The Sedona property was quickly sold, and the trust fund liquidated. The restitution was made in full. Their apologies, while initially hollow, became more contrite as the reality of their situation sank in. The financial counseling they underwent forced them to confront their irresponsible spending habits and entitled attitudes. Their social circle quickly dwindled as word quietly spread about the unfortunate legal troubles they'd faced. Marcus, unable to manage the stress and his diminished ego, eventually lost his engineering job, struggling to find new employment with a federal misdemeanor on his record. Their marriage, already strained by financial irresponsibility, buckled under the weight of the scandal and their mutual recriminations. I heard they were considering separation. I felt no joy in their suffering, only a quiet sense of balance restored. It was a harsh lesson, but a necessary one. As for me, I reclaimed my life with a profound sense of peace. My cancer prognosis remained excellent, a testament to my own strength and resilience. I sold my old car, the one Sarah had driven me home in that day, and settled into a serene rhythm of life. My new Porsche, a symbol of my regained autonomy, became my companion on long drives through the desert, exploring the beauty of Arizona. I moved into a lovely new condo, one that felt like a fresh start, uncluttered by the echoes of past betrayals. My relationships with Patricia and Ramon deepened, a true testament to loyalty and friendship. I realized that justice wasn't about vengeance. It was about restoration, about setting boundaries, and about reclaiming my own self-respect. It was about knowing that I was no longer anyone's victim. The difficult work of rebuilding a relationship with Sarah, of truly healing the rift, that's another story, one that is still being written. With cautious hope but firm boundaries, I finally understood that love without respect isn't love at all. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.